welcome back to Cast Me to Hell with me, Seb.
And with me, Robbie.
And this week we continue our festive season with It's a Wonderful Knife.
Yes, a little play on there. I also believe that this is Christmas week.
It is.
If my math serves me correct, it will be Christmas in a couple of days.
This is a pre-recording and then being like, we're way off.
I mean, if you're...
This is February 8th.
This is February the 8th.
We somehow completely fucked our timing.
Yes, so it may be coal under our Christmas tree this year. You know?
There may indeed. So, yes, in case you were still confused by the title, we are not suddenly changing from the horror genre to 1940s classics of Christmas cinema.
Of suicidal
This is
man.
not It's a Wonderful Life. It's not about a suicidal man who realises his life is not as bad as it may seem. Instead, this is about a woman who realises that a serial killer driven town is not as bad as it may seem.
Who realises
taking a man's life is not as
taking
bad
a
as it
man's
seems.
life and crippling trauma isn't the end of the world. You know,
Yeah.
It can always get worse.
All you need to do is go through more trauma, and your PTSD is fixed. Is what this film
that's the
taught
way
me.
of doing it.
That's what I'll be learning in the future. If I get any more severe trauma, I just need to go out and get more.
Yeah, just get more.
And it'll cancel itself out at some
the
point.
other stuff. So I will get my cheap plug in before we kind of get stuck into the episode. So it's Christmas. What more, could you do for the season of giving? Then hit that subscribe button and leave us a lovely review as we head into 2025. Or if for some reason you're listening to this way in the future, whatever year we are now in, 2030, 2048, whatever year, however you're receiving this transmission, leave us a review if that still exists.
Or if it's 2025. Or if we never actually get to 2025.
If the world ends.
If the world ends, then it will be a nice goodbye present for the end. If it is 31st of December 2024 and you're thinking, do I watch that episode? Do I subscribe to their channel? The war's about to begin and it's all about to end. Give us that. It's a nice end of the world. We get to go out there. We had one more subscriber.
We just had one more subscriber, and it could be you.
Yeah, you might change the course of history. You don't know. That might be the one act that saved all those bombs.
So let's find out. This was a film that we just picked because it came out last year. There's been a lot of these things recently where they kind of have like a young adult slasher vibe, that kind of 15, but then they add some kind of twist on it. And interestingly enough, we were talking just before we started recording that this was co-written by Michael Kennedy, who also did Freaky, that we covered and we were big fans of. And then he also did Time Cut, that came out on Netflix this year. I think a couple of months ago, maybe.
Although I think the Time Cut one, I think that was delayed by like 2 years for some reason.
Maybe.
I can't remember what it was, but it was delayed by like 2 years due to I don't know. Someone was doing something in the background, or something was wrong, or someone did, or someone I don't know.
Yeah, someone was up to no good. You got a distance from the dead.
It was something like that. You had to give some distance or things like that, like anyone who supports anyone who's got anything they were about to release, including Diddy.
Yeah. I don't know if he was at the Diddy party. He had to get some distance from it.
But it's a genre that seems to be quite I feel like in the last 5 years we've had quite a few of these kind of style of
Happy Death Day.
I think
really kicked, because that was great, and I feel like that really kick-started this idea of we can go back and look at these fun. A lot of them are kind of like 80s almost. Time Cut was a bit Back to the Future. This is obviously not 80s, but 1940s. And then Freaky was obviously Freaky Friday, but like an interesting twist on that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of them that seem to be coming out. And we thought, this is a Christmas one. Why don't we take the plunge, see how it is?
Yeah, I remember wanting to watch this last year when it was released. Now I don't don't think this was much in terms of a big cinema release.
No, I don't know if it was straight to Shudder, because the main thing that I remember people kind of talking about was Mr. Justin Long, Mr. Catherine Isabel.
Yeah.
Both kind of modern day, horror greats. They've been in a lot, kind of recognizable faces, well thought of, in a lot of cult films as well.
Yeah, they
were the kind of main advertising point for me.
I mean, it was mainly like Mr. Justin Long's not been in many he's been in quite a few. I mean, but he seems to like go through periods of about 5 or 10 years between each horror film that he'll then appear in, except for now when he's done Barbarian and this one quite close together. But he seemed to go through like a niche of like I'll die in a horror film every 10 years. That's since he was a teenager. It's like I'll do one. I'll do Jeepers Creepers, and then I'll die again. I'll die in, I think, what was it, Tusk or something like that.
Turn me into a walrus.
Yeah, turn me into a walrus, off me in that way. And then I'll leave it about another 10 years, and then I'll have Barbarian, which I don't want to spoil because I still feel it's fresh enough that I don't want that to be spoiled by anyone if you haven't seen that. But check that one out if you haven't. And then, like, within about 2 years, he decided this time, it's like, actually, I'm going to take it slightly differently. But in the other one, he was perceived to be the nice guy. Through a lot of those films, he was perceived to be someone who was good, who then turned out maybe to not be what you were expecting.
Yeah.
In this one, he's an asshole straight away.
He's full asshole, and he's fucking. He kills the role, but he also. They must have the makeup on him is just insane. Like we were watching it, and we were like, he has these really weird, shining eyes, these like veneers. He almost looks like he's been blended with some like weird. Like preacher, and he just feels really uncomfortable to look at.
I mean, it's weird because I guess Justin Long used to having he's somewhat slightly kind of palish dude who has like darker hair, so you kind of are used to seeing him like looking like that, like
and quite boyish as well.
Yeah, quite a boyish charm to him.
Yeah,
he's got like this brownish, like slicked back hair. And the fact that he's got like this tan skin and these white veneers and those eyes that are just like so weird, like it just kind of like he looks odd to look at, and some people might be a bit like thrown off by it. I'm not talking like Nicolas Cage and long legs kind of that just doesn't look natural. Like it does look like some people out there look like.
Just look like it almost looks very vampiric.
Yeah,
that's what struck me. I was like, and there was at one point, and it was at the end where the film did kind of go quite weird. Where I was like, have we seen Mr. Justin Long during the day? Like, is there some going to be random twist that he's a vampire? And then I was like, no, we've seen him during the day. He's just weird looking.
I mean, there are twists there are twists in this film, and and even though I knew what it was, I completely forgot before we went to watch this film. And then part of the way, and I was like, how the fuck did I forget what the premise of this film is?
Well, I even asked you.
Yeah, you asked me what is like, or is it, I'm interested, you were like, is it going to be interested in what kind of twist this is? And I was like, I think it's just a straightforward slasher, and I don't know why I thought that.
No.
My brain had just like knocked out as if it's just, no, it's just a Christmassy setting. Completely forgetting. And the fact that, oddly enough, It's a Wonderful Life is pretty much like my favourite Christmas film, so I completely know the plot of that film very, very well. And in my mind, as we started to watch this, went, nah, it's just like, it's like Scream at Christmas.
Yeah, Scream at Christmas.
It's Scream at Christmas.
Yeah.
There's nothing else to this. It's just a serial killer. We'll find out. It seems pretty likely it's going to be Justin Long, but we'll find out. Yeah, kind of things like that. And then,
lo and behold, it is Justin.
It is Justin Long. Literally in the opening of the film, in the opening 10 minutes.
Yeah, well, a little bit of foreplay just before we stick it straight in.
Yeah.
We're introduced to this town, Angel Falls. We're introduced to our kind of final girl, Winnie Carruthers, who maybe that's that's kind of like a play on some Christmas name. I don't know. Like I said in our Gremlins feature we did last week, I'm dog shit with Christmas films. I don't watch them, so it may have been. I don't know.
Carruthers is definitely ringing a bell, but I can't figure. Yeah,
but they're in this town, Angel Falls, and there's this guy, James Waters, whatever his name is, Mr. Justin Long, who's like the real estate asshole who's trying to build this big ass mall, and there's an old man who his house is the last house to be sold, and they can't do it.
Yeah.
And then, her dad goes with, I'm selling it really share. Her dad goes with Justin Long to talk to the old man and try and convince him to sell. And he's like, no, I ain't doing it. I'm passing it to my granddaughter. Lo and behold, the angel, as they call him, kills the old man, and then starts to kind of very quickly.
I mean, we get that death scene very quick. We get quite a nice setup for it. We get the whole, there's it goes to the door. There's a snowman at the door, and then then suddenly bursts through and slices the old man's neck straight away.
Slice the old.
It's a pretty effective kind of death. That kind of starts us off, kind of thing. But it's probably the next one that, following on from this, the granddaughter that had gone to, he'd been here, so you knew the old man was going to die. And this is straight away where you're like, well, it seems pretty obvious that it's Justin Long, because it's like that. But you knew that was going to happen. But the one that I didn't expect to die, to be fair, at the start of the film was his granddaughter, because she seemed fairly set up. Now she's with our main character here. She is alongside, and it's this relationship between them seems to be bonding. I thought there was a lesbian vibe there. I thought that they were actually a couple, which was why. But I guess I misinterpreted that at the beginning of the film. But then that kind of played out later in the film. But they go to a party. We kind of get the setup with all the friends. We've got the weird stoner who's got a dude that's in his 40s who's been invited, and they're playing with gummy bears, weed gummy bears, and they're having those between each other. We get set up that our main girl, and why am I blanking on the name?
Winnie Carruthers.
We watched this film we finished watching 10 minutes ago. My brain has gone what? Winnie. Winnie's got she's got a boyfriend, and she's got over another close friend. Those two seem to be somewhat close to each other as well. And we've just got the general setup of the different characters. There's lots of different ones. There's the weirdo girl, Bernie.
People just call her weirdo.
Yeah, who just seems to have a quick comeback for anything that's said. Dude throws a literal cup straight at her head, and she's just you have extremely good aim. Yeah, it's little lines. You can tell there's the little Commodore. There's a good little.
There's some Commodores.
The Commodores in there. The Commodores in there.
The Commodores randomly turn up and start playing Brick House at one point. It's a thing. It's a bit weird.
It's an odd little moment. There is some odd little.
There are odd moments.
But yeah, so we've got the general setup, but it gets pretty quick. We've got Winnie's friend, the granddaughter, she goes out with her boyfriend, or their first kiss kind of thing, on a bridge, and straight away they go to kiss, and then she's I got a weird taste in my mouth. What have you been eating? And then you see blood coming down her lip, and you're like, what the fuck? She turns around and realizes that he's had a literal
big
metal candy cane shoved through the back of his head.
Yeah, he's
fucked. It's pretty cool. His death is quick. And then she gets chased by the angel. We get our second and our more full body look at the angel kind of thing,
which is quite a cool looking character.
It is. It's a pretty awesome costume. For what it is. It's a little bit Ghostface. Just white, basically. But it works for what it is. The whole Angel Falls thing, I quite like the link. I think it's simple as well. It's not overdoing it. The costume, it just keeps it quite nice and simple. She's chased and attacked across the bridge. There was one point early on that I did think was a little bit weird. The fact that she basically gets a knife through the hand. Yeah. And she gets attacked against the wall. And she then gets knocked down like she's fucked. You're like, oh damn, now he's going to come for it. And then he disappears in a kind of weirdly suspenseful. And you're like, okay. Yeah. You're thinking that maybe someone else is going to be there who scared him off. But you're like, no one else is there. And then he starts stabbing under the bridge. Yeah. And I just started thinking at the time, I was like, what a goddamn waste of your time.
Yeah.
Why?
I'd just go for her on the floor.
Yeah, she was literally... There was a point where she hits the floor and her face is against the floor. So he literally could have just done the killing blow then. Yeah. But instead it's I'm in the mood to fuck about. So I'm going to run round to the end of the bridge. I'm going to go under the bridge. I'm going to get under here. And I'm just going to make sure... I'm going to wait a minute because I need to work out where the fuck you are under the bridge.
Yeah, I need to get the logistics.
And now I'm going to stab twice at the bridge, and then I'm going to quickly realise that this didn't work and that this was never going to kill you. Yeah. And then you're like, shit, I've got to get back on top of this fucking bridge. So she manages to make it all the way to the friends to be like, help me, blood everywhere. But he's now playing catch up.
Yeah, and then she gets butchered quite brutally.
She does, yeah. This scene reminded me of Scream 4. Olivia's death in the bedroom when she's just getting fucking railed. You know, when she's like with a knife.
I wonder what version you were watching.
I watched the wrong Scream.
It was the wrong Scream. She was screaming.
It's the wrong one.
Yeah,
but it's that same kind of like. Everyone's watching, like they're watching
they're
her.
Powerless to do it.
They're powerless to the railing.
Powerless whilst they watch the railing. Yeah,
but it's brutal. Like the blood is. I really liked this scene because it follows along the window in like a tracking shot as it like is
slicing her. And we were both like, you get the classic thing of like. She's slamming against the window, and then he comes up behind her and he starts stabbing her with a knife. And you're like, okay, that's the expected thing. And then you get the reaction of Winnie and the mates watching.
It sounds sexual to me now. He's coming from behind. All the friends are watching. I don't know why.
It's on the
brain. We watched porn. We didn't watch some horror.
No, I really just watched porn. We had a really nice curry and what a porn.
Yeah.
That's what you do on a Saturday.
That's what you do. We held hands.
But, and then you get her getting sliced up. And we were both like, oh, that's right. It's quite brutal.
It seemed like, as I said, it seemed like she was more... Like, I was, at that point, to be fair, I wasn't sure if it Winnie or whether she was the main kind of character.
Yeah.
Because we'd kind of got an introduction to both families and both dynamics, so it seemed like there was more to delve into. She seemed more like the one that was going to be attacked because of her grandfather, so it seemed like this setup for the one that's going to be, he's going to keep coming after you kind of thing. And in a standard slasher, that may have been the setup, but it wasn't.
May have been. So
because Winnie gets outside,
and so does her brother Jimmy. Jimmy and Winnie, interesting names. And then what happens is like Jimmy's outside kissing chap. There was a point where he was like talking about I need to go and kiss this sexual man, and I think you must have missed it because whilst they were talking, you were like, oh, they're kind of like teasing like a gay thing with the brother, and I was like, no, he's gay, and then like, the next scene is him kissing a man, and you're like, oh, there you go.
I missed something here. I mean, I thought it from like the earlier scene when
he was talking
when we find Justin Long's brother basically is like, it says about him having like an OnlyFans and he's showing his dick by the tree, and the brother seemed interested in that scene, and at that point it wasn't revealed, so I was like, is it going to be like a secret gay, closeted kind of thing here going on here? And then that happened, and I literally missed a whole line of,
to be
a whole section of them talking about that's the dude. I'm gonna go off of that dude.
He literally said it, and then he did it. So the angel then goes to try and kill Jimmy, but Winnie turns up, and they have a little tussle, as you do. And then as they kind of, they run away, she plugs up like a car battery to the angel.
As he's about to try and finish off Jimmy.
He's finishing off. He's finishing him off.
Jimmy's got him in his hands and he's trying to hold him off.
He's pumping. And, he's on top of him pumping away. And then he puts it into, Winnie puts the
car batteries right into him, proper electric shock. Which again, because like I think what's nice about the style of this film is that you are a little bit like you're not like, because you're not sure where this is really going with this. You're thinking, oh shit, this is like that's going to kill that's going to kill the killer off straight away. This is a bit soon.
I think it's because we didn't know where it was going.
Because we had forgot. Anyone else who'd actually remembered or seen the trailer or who just got the idea of It's a Wonderful Life would have been absolutely fit here, but somehow I just blanked it out of my head completely. It all seemed like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah, because effectively then it flashed forwards a year. We
made the film better for ourselves, by the way. I think if we'd known it may have seemed may not have seemed as good to us as actually. Oh, that's quite a good opening.
Well, Justin Long is revealed to be the killer, and then we flip forward a year, and we see that Winnie's life is basically like turned to shit. Her parents are kind of really cold towards her. Her dad has now taken over like the real estate business and absolutely loves her brother. Kind of neglects her a little bit. Her friends are, like
Well, her boyfriend is cheating on her with the other friend, and apparently has been for the year anyway.
Has been for the year anyway. Her life's basically gone to shit, and her best friends died. She's been dumped.
Yeah.
And then she goes out and she goes to this like dock area, and she sees the aurora borealis. And at this point, we were talking about my trip to Iceland. We were just talking about the aurora borealis, and I think I said to you something like, "Oh, like I wonder if this film has like a twist, like It's a Wonderful Life." And you were like, "No, I think it's just a straightforward slasher film." So we carried on talking about Aurora Borealis, and then the next thing we know,
and we weren't fully paying attention because then suddenly it was like, "What the fuck just happened?
What the fuck? The killer's back." So then we rewound it, and we found out that at this point, she's
at this point, it did dawn on me just before we were out that I went, fucking, it's called It's a Wonderful Life, and I've just remembered why I've already referenced that it's a Wonderful Life, but for some reason my brain only just clicked to, she has to say that her life, she wishes she was never born, and the whole thing will change and what will happen. Yeah. And I was just like that. I was like, then you were like, yeah, I think we just missed loads of dialogue. I was like, for fuck's sake.
And lo and behold, she does wish that.
She does wish this. I mean, in some ways, I think, based on where this goes towards the end, the whole change in her life after she'd killed, before she wishes she was never born, I feel like that whole is... I feel like she's being a little bit overly sensitive with everything around
100%.
her. Because everyone seems to just be pissing her off, and I think she does this more out of an act of the fact that she can't get over... We were quite in a conversation about the fact that she's annoyed that people don't bring up the fact that she murdered someone.
Yeah.
We had several little moments of like, you don't want... So every time you go to the shop, you don't want... Oh yeah, remember when you killed our mayor?
Yeah, when you killed our mayor last year.
Oh, you've got beautiful blue eyes. Remember when you killed the man with beautiful blue eyes?
Beautiful blue-eyed angel who was trying to destroy our city. Do you remember when you fried him?
Remember when the creeper showed up and went, remember that time I killed Justin Long? You did it too, didn't you?
Yeah. Remember when your best friend was killed in front
of your meeting where everyone who's killed Justin Long in a film meeting
has to mandatory go to it.
Sorry, it's not as big as the one by Sean Bean.
No, it's like a convention.
That's like a conveyor belt.
Yeah.
You can't fit them all into one building.
No, they have to do it on a fucking 3-day weekend. But yeah, and then, this is when the killer kind of randomly comes back. She is now a year ahead. However, she never existed. So the Mr. Justin Long, or the Angel, was never stopped.
Yeah.
We find out that basically the Angel just happens to be there, and for some reason just kills some random dock worker, stabs him in the eye, and then chases after her. She calls the police, and then Sheriff Buck turns up. No longer is he a slave for OnlyFans, putting pictures of his cock up. Now he's the sheriff.
Yeah.
He obviously doesn't have a fucking clue who she is. But
he's the brother, so we're assuming he's been put in that position because he knows his brother's a bit dumb. And therefore,
the sheriff died.
Henry Waters is never going to be like...
That's it, Henry Waters.
Well, yeah, Henry Waters never killed... Henry Waters killed him, didn't he? He killed the other sheriff.
Him, of course.
He's setting the whole town up to follow his...
Beautiful blue eyes. He does have stunning blue eyes.
And the whole town, therefore, all of the businesses have changed. They are all owned. She realizes very quickly. You do have to go through the whole her realization that she doesn't exist, and it's a little bit of a part where it's like that. But it does sometimes feel... It's one part where it felt like... At first it was like, okay, you've got to have everything's changed.
Yeah.
Like, this, those things. My mum's getting railed by a dude in my kitchen. My dad's literally in, the other room, but my mum's getting railed by dudes.
My mum's, drinking a bottle of wine, just getting absolutely pounded on the fucking... on the island in the kitchen, whilst my aunt just sits there.
She literally walks into her house, an American household, and she just walks in, and her mum is not bothered by the fact that there's a random woman in her house.
Steaming and getting railed.
I mean, she is, yeah. And then the dad walks in, and he's a little bit more weirded why. And we were just there like, this seems like a very odd situation to walk into an American household and be like, I'm well, yeah, pretty much.
Where's your son who died?
I just walked in, there you go. Because that's how it plays out, right?
But I thought the weirdest thing was, and the bit that cracked up, is that she then goes back to the the house party that she was at a year before,
Yeah.
where she finds that her boyfriend has been cheating on her. He's on the job in the laundry room. We find out that like her life's not great at the moment, and it's a crack den, and all of a sudden everybody's in there smoking crack, and there's just a random and it's not just
the ones that were having the weed gummies have upgraded from that to a crack pipe.
But then she goes downstairs, and in the original timeline, it's kind of like it would be a nice basement, but it's just got a couple of kids down there like drinking and doing things that teens do. But then she goes down there and it's like derelict and they're all smoking crack. So it's that thing of like
there's a really weird tonal imbalance in these scenes where you've got people that are smoking crack where it looks a bit like a crack den.
Yeah.
You've got writing on the walls as if it literally is. But then some of the rooms look perfectly pristine, like it's a normal house.
Yeah.
Like it was before. Like they basically filmed the two scenes side by side and went, quickly, just run in and just write some shit on the walls.
Write some shit.
And give everyone a crack pipe.
Give everybody a crack pipe.
And that's the difference between these scenes. Because even like her boyfriend who she like they seem, it's his house, but they seem way too happy and in love for two people that are literally having a house party that's basically a crack party.
Yeah, they're like everybody else is fine, just turn a blind eye.
A lot of people on the couches and stuff, they look like addicts. They look like they're on that crack pipe and they're loving life. You know, who wouldn't? But
there's that weird scene where she steps outside and there's, I mean, of course you have a crack den, so you got to have a bin with some hobos around it, and the bin's on fire. We get two of those, which is quite interesting. And then there's just some random shirtless black gentleman who just like is stumbling around, and he just says to this other guy, like, "Kick me in the nuts," and he gets kicked in the nuts, and then he walks off. And Winnie is like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "That guy's kicking my ass." And then it's just like, we were looking at each other and we were like, was that supposed to be the guy that Jimmy was kissing before? But it looks like two completely different actors. I don't think
this moment is just so confusing. It was funny to me.
It was fun.
Like not in the way they think. I think it was funny because it was so out of place and just so like unexplained that you were just like, what?
Why?
I was literally like trying to wrap my brains. Like, what? Did I miss a setup for this? In the other world, was there some weird fighting thing something? I don't know. It was just, what the fuck?
So weird.
We literally just kicked a guy in the nuts. He said that guy's kicking my ass, and then you walk off. And it's like, why?
Yeah, I mean, I know crack dens are weird, but.
I'd also say that I do feel that Winnie seems to take a long time to get to the point that she doesn't exist here anymore.
Oh, yeah.
She seems to... but it's more the fact that she seems to, like, at the house party, seems to realise that no one knows who she is. But then every time she looks at something else, she's like, I don't exist. She looks at a yearbook, like, 5 minutes after everyone's already said, we don't know you. After the parents have already said you don't exist. After she's already seen pictures in the house that show she doesn't exist. After she's made the wish that I should never have been born. And yet she then picked up like a yearbook and she's like, looked for the names, like, I'm not there. What?
Yeah, what's going on here?
And you're sat there like, we're about to be in for the slowest realisation in the film ever. Where it's like, you get like another 10 minutes later and you're like,
oh my
but
god!
How do I exist?
Yeah.
It's like, fuck me.
Yeah, what?
You don't exist. You did this.
Yeah.
I really didn't take. I don't think it took the original this long to understand. It didn't exist.
It's the actions of your consequences. They're finally here.
They are finally here. You have done this. You have led to a town that is full of a killer that just now likes killing. You've got the weirdo Bernie now becoming an accomplice of her because. No one else.
Nobody else
is going near her, and no one cares. And everyone else is on crack. So
everybody's too busy smoking crack to bother.
They're either on crack or they're loving Justin Long's blue eyes too much.
I mean, we do get a good kill shortly after Winnie leaves the crack house, which is the decidedly older
the
man.
40-year-old gentleman that's hanging around at the teenage party.
Yeah,
who's just loving the lights because he's high on crack.
Because he's high on crack, he's enjoying the lights. And then, they start there was quite a cool shot where, it kind of pans round to show the side of the 40-year-old crackhead. And the light kind of flicks on and you see the angel kind of stood against the white wall. and then he attacks him with.
And you got a
with
cool
an
like
axe.
flashing.
Yeah, we get like the
effects going
strobe
on.
light, and we get like a kind of borderline metal version of Cowl of the Bells.
Yeah.
And then he chases him around a little bit, and then he just butchers him with an axe. And it's a decent scene.
And we get a shot from the window. I like some of the either the tracking ones or the fact that they go for quite a lot of these kind of quite visual, like jumping out, like either strobe shots or where it's like blocked next window. You're seeing stuff from different angles and things like that. Like generally, one thing's positive is that for the most part, I did enjoy the slasher parts of this film. I enjoyed like most of those scenes, although there was a contrast between the original and then the darker timeline to say.
Yeah.
Where the first couple of deaths, I quite liked the way that they were shot because they were quite light and bright, like a kind of Christmassy film.
Yeah.
All of the later ones are very darkly shot.
Well, the palette of the film kind of changes, doesn't it? It becomes a lot more like subdued.
Yeah, and I understand it, but it therefore makes a lot of them kind of have an oddly sameness look to them.
Yeah.
In some of them. So it was my only little gripe was the fact that I get why you've done it, but I also think it slightly took away from I kind of wanted to see more of those like really red, clear, quite brighter deaths in the earlier scenes than these dark ones.
I think for me it came down to, and I don't know whether this is the style of the films that they're making, because they are doing like another film that I forgot to mention was Totally Killer. I don't know if you watched that.
Yeah.
That was kind of a very similar thing. But I watched Time Cut this week, and I felt like it very much had a similar thing to this, where the general vibe and the general idea is quite interesting, but unlike Freaky, which I think had a bigger budget to it. Yeah. And it had a lot more, I don't know if competence is the right word, but it had a lot more kind of like, maybe because the budget was a bit bigger. But I felt like with Time Cut and with It's a Wonderful Knife, when it came to the kills, they were a bit more subdued. I think they were, I don't want to use the word lackluster, but they were a lot kind of like, there was a couple that were off screen, or you didn't exactly see them as much. They did have a bit of like a light 15 kind of vibe to them. I'm not saying I expected it to be extremely bloody. That the kill of the granddaughter we had at the start, which was the one that we were like, oh, that's kind of brutal. You saw splashes of blood, but it was more that you were just kind of like, I thought that the death was going to finish then, and then it's carried on with this extra bit of brutality.
Yeah.
Whereas I kind of feel like even as we went on in this film, a lot of the deaths happened off screen. Like you'd see, like the mum's death later on in the film, for instance. The mum is, she's about to get pounded by some random stranger who's coming off the street. And then we get a scene where the angel turns up and basically stabs her. And the stabbing's okay, but then the camera kind of like pans round and we see that the stranger who was doing the riding, he's already dead with a knife in his neck. It's that kind of thing where I think maybe it's because it is a lot smaller of a budget. They're having to try and be a bit more creative and work their way around that. But that was one of the things for me that kind of stuck out. And it was the same with Time Cut. I mean, I watched that this week and I was like, interesting premise yet again. But when it does come to the horror of the film, it feels a bit subdued and it feels like it's made, I don't know whether it's intentionally holding back or whether it's the budget. But that's just my.
I think the budget plays a bigger part here than say like it would have like with Freaky or some of the other ones where they can't quite. But Time Cut as well, I think also had probably more than this film had, to be honest.
Probably.
I think this one, because this one's definitely a smaller kind of budgeted one than some of those other ones. And I get that. I'm quite often one of it. Like Totally Killer was one that I didn't really enjoy that much. I found it it had an interesting idea, but I didn't feel like it did an interesting enough stuff with the idea to make it kind of full for me. And that's kind of actually probably what stopped me from watching Time Cut, because I was like, it sounds like a very similar film.
I preferred Totally Killer to Time Cut.
Oh, right. Okay.
But similar enough films.
And that one had some deaths and like quite like bloody and gory. This one seemed to rely quite a lot on the blood and the splatter of the blood over the actual scene. Like you see the grandfathers early on, which you actually see the slice in it.
Yeah.
And some of the other ones you don't really see the slices, you just see the blood coming around it or things like that. So it definitely seems like they were trying to avoid the practical effect kind of part of it kind of thing. Not going away from like those parts, but I don't know. What didn't bother me as much as it has in other like of these kind of films where they seem to definitely be like going almost for their PG-13 like audience that might be able to get in to see this film. But I get what you get that with the some of it occasionally I thought had a little bit of a sameness at times to it. So we do get this long, section obviously where it is a lot of the setup of now the like trying to give ideas of the world that she's in kind of thing. Yeah. And I think a lot of that would rely on how much you're into the concept and how much you're like, because the whole thing with It's a Wonderful Life is that it's quite like dramatic, then it's quite dark, and then it gets quite schmaltzy at the end kind of thing.
Yeah, but I think that's a fair point of all of these films. Like, it's how much you can buy into the concept.
Yeah,
and I think the two that kind of really stuck out for me. I think Happy Death Day, but I think maybe because it had a bigger backing to it, and I think it was very fresh when it came out. I feel like I mean,
Happy Death Day is also quite like dull in terms of the deaths though. It's not that one's not very graphic at all, is it? But
it has
fun.
like a fun to it.
Yeah,
and I think the idea there's like a certain playfulness to it. And then when you look at Freaky as well, which is another Michael Kennedy written film, I remember that having a lot more.
Well, that's the same director as well, isn't it? They're both Christopher Landon. Happy Death Day and Freaky were both the same director.
Well, maybe that's it because, like I said, there's an element of fun, and there is an element of like the slashing is done well. I remember thinking Freaky was fucking banging.
Yeah. Well, that one played proper onto like Friday the 13th almost level of like the kill at the start is like proper Friday the 13th. Really cool. So that was pretty cool. Like when it goes into that one, that one was good. But then I guess it also had the extra talent and the Vince Vaughn and Catherine Newton.
Catherine Newton,
yeah,
and the supporting cast were great.
Yeah, they upped that a little bit. Whereas, which is why when sometimes you've got lower budget and you haven't always got the actors. That's one thing I do. I think for the most part, actually, the actors in this film are actually doing a perfectly good job. I didn't find any of them majorly cringy or the actor, and I thought that's one of the things I was going to find straight away is a lot of like, you never know if you're just going to get one where, although the concept's good, some of the actors just can't really like raise any of it, and I think they're definitely doing like the best with what they're working with here.
Yeah, I don't think there were any bad performances. I mean, Justin Long fucked, but then that's I feel like Justin Long is like Carl Gollner. Like they can put in a dependable shift when it comes to doing a horror film.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then
Jane Widdop is Winnie, and she's good.
She's good.
Joel McHale, who people will know more. Joel McHale is like in Comedy Community and a lot of films and stuff in the last 10 years or so, and he's perfectly fine. As what he is though, he's just plays that. There's not really much to his role, to be honest.
I would have liked to have seen a bit more Catherine Isabel, but then I feel like as the aunt, how much of a role could she realistically play? Yeah, because I feel like she only had a handful of scenes.
Had quite but she has quite a fun charm to her when she was in her scenes. Yeah, which is what she's a character that actually I agree that actually it would have been nice to have her in it more.
Maybe even
because she was more interesting than a lot of the other adults in the film. To be honest, like she was, she had a playfulness to her that I think brought a little
certain to her. But then she must have only had like 5 or 6 scenes, maybe.
I think so.
I don't think she had particularly many.
No,
which was a shame. The same for Mr. Justin Long. But then, I guess the whole premise is that when they go back in time, when they go into this kind of alternate universe, she knows who the killer is. Nobody else does, and she's very much saying that it is Henry Waters, and it's more that his presence has taken over the town. Like the bank in It's a Wonderful Life. He's kind of dominating the town, taking over everything. And it's a bit of a red herring that he is the killer, Like we very much at the start were like, I wonder if it's 2 killers, They go and scream, Daddy and Mr. Henry Waters. And I mean, we were kind of like, we were pretty much right. It's a very
pretty
easy
much
thing to
right,
pick
just
up.
not in the right timeline.
Yeah, not in the right timeline.
Yeah. So that's the part I think that's a little bit more tricky to talk about, because it is a lot of dramatic stuff. She finds out a lot of like changes to the world around her. The community's changed. When she meets up with Bernie, the weirdo, she finds out they basically realise that, you know, it's all to do with the businesses, that all of the money that they can make by basically offering not only the person who owns the businesses, but anyone who would inherit that.
Yeah, kill the little kid.
And that's why the death rate is now up to something like 28 by the time, 27, 28 by the time we've got into this kind of part. And they also then just imply that it seems like the killer's just started enjoying killing at this point.
Yeah.
So whoever's the person killing is the person enjoying, which we're assuming is Henry Waters, is the killer. Then, you know, this is the little bit where you get like, at first it's interesting, and then it feels like we go on for a little while and there's not as much happening, and there's not many deaths for a little like section here when we're first finding it out.
But after
we get the one at the party, which feels almost like it was thrown in just because they were like, we haven't got, because this was the part where we questioned why are some of these people dying, because it seems so unrelated, and they just basically throw out that they just like killing at this point.
Let's just kill this crackhead.
Which just which is fine, but that explanation still wasn't quite like it felt a little bit like, yeah, but why would you be putting yourself out so much, kind of thing? But also, why are you still dressing up if everyone, because well, later on we find out that basically he's basically quite happy to, in like ritual like way, kill people in front of a whole crowd of
which was weird
people, which was a weird little twist on a twist kind of thing. Which then makes you question why someone's even dressing up as the killer anymore anyway.
It makes you question a bit. Quite a bit.
There is a twist, yeah. So, we find out that it's, I'm just going to jump to, we find out it's Daddy.
We find out it's Daddy.
Mummy and her sexual slave
have been killed.
She was drunk. She got absolutely piped in more than one way.
Yeah, she was
she gets stabbed. Most of that happens like off screen. So, we get like a chase. We've got the one bit that is the additional part here. That's a nice part, I think, is the relationship with Bernie, the weirdo. I think she adds a nice kind of part with it. She's kind of interesting, and she's the one that's kind of the exposition to work out a lot of this whole Aurora Borealis. How does this work? What do you need to do?
It's the spirits of the dead,
yeah,
apparently. Although, kind of, because they're very much like, well, it's a vengeful spirit because Henry Waters died.
Yeah.
So to get back, you have to kill Henry Waters again.
Yeah, but they also kind of imply that, so in that part, that Henry Waters may be the vengeful spirit after she killed him, to try and make it so that basically he would get a second go at doing all of the, that he would get to have this power, that it would work out better for him. So almost like he is this. But this part is not really explained.
No, or touched.
Never really, like, it's kind of only very vaguely kind of played on. When we get these scenes. Before we get to this reveal, let's go to the cinema scene, which is, basically telling Daddy that we're here in the cinema, getting him to come after them. And we get, one of the cooler kind of shot, I think, is the fact that when they go in there, the aunt, who was a Catherine Isabel character, Gail, she gets offed in this scene. She walks out when the cheating ex-boyfriend and his partner come for their anniversary day at the cinema. Unexpectedly, she walks out thinking everything's alright, and she gets stabbed in the back by the angel.
Daddy.
Which,
Angel.
Again, is another like kind of off scene, like she drops. Again, maybe some people might not have been expecting it because she seemed like she was kind of playing into it, so it's quite sudden for her. Then all the lights go out and we get a really, like, quite cool kind of where she picks up her camera and starts using the flash to be able to see things, which also doesn't completely make sense at the same time, because it also means that he knows where you are constantly. So he knows where you are, so at the same time, there's two ones.
Where did she get the camera from?
She got it off of the mannequin. It was around the neck of her character's mannequin.
That's where it came.
So I think she'd left all of her clothes on there. So she'd had it on her before, or she'd had Bernie's camera because she had a camera upstairs. So she got it. I think she got it off of there.
She must have, because I know that it's the same camera she gets for Christmas when she goes back.
Returns back, yeah.
And I was thinking, like, how did you get that?
Yeah, well, she did have. She was a camera. She at the start of the film. She was a photographer taking a lot of pictures. So I think she already had a camera. So I don't know if it was exactly the same one, but I was just more thinking. I was like, in one way, this is a really cool way to show shots. In another way, it's a really easy way to make the killer be like, "You're fucking there." I'm like, "Hello, it's darkness. I'm coming for you." But apparently, the killer doesn't matter because he can see in the dark, even though everyone else can't see shit. Apparently, because it's like pitch black. It implies that it is pitch black.
Yeah, but you get the cool shots of him like in the again the kind of strobe lighting, killing the new couple.
Well, the cheating boyfriend and the girl gets and again we don't really we see him like stab her in the back a couple of times, like take her down, and then he gets him and like I think he gets one into the side of his gut and then gutting, but we're not seeing it clearly. But again, for something without a budget, I think it's a fun way to make a death scene where they kind of get chased out and then. Off it, like the whole plan was to lure him there in order to kill him, and we get a really fun scene where she runs with the like basically he had attacked her, she blocked it with a brush, and it snapped in half. He gets knocked down, she runs up the stairs and she uses the stairs as leverage to point the stick out, so he runs directly into it.
Does the old hide around the corner
and
stick.
Daddy dead. So Daddy was the killer. So again, we're thinking, so has it changed in this timeline? Did you never being born somehow make him become the killer? That she goes to do the whole Aurora Borealis. She's like, we get the whole play on the original of who was the one who's going to commit suicide, which was actually Bernie. The weirdo says that I was going to,
I was got off myself.
That adds a little kind of emotional weight to that part.
Life, because I've only seen it once, and I remember that he's got to kill himself.
Yeah.
And then
it is just him who's going to kill it. There's no like twist midway through that. I was going to kill myself as well. It was just,
I thought there was
he was going to jump off. He's going to
I know he's going to jump off the bridge, but does an angel come to him or something?
Yeah, Clarence.
The
angel comes down. So like the whole film starts with like the angel. There's the angels are talking about his life and they tell us the whole story of his life.
Shit.
And then it's on the bridge, and then he's going to kill himself, and that's where like Clarence, who's basically got to get down there, is going to throw himself off that bridge, and then he's like, I'm the angel.
Because in my head,
to help him
when
he shows him what his life would have been. It's basically a Christmas Carol.
Yeah, but then when we were watching this, and he was like, "Oh, Bernie is like, this was going to be my last Christmas. I was going to fucking do myself in." I was thinking like, I've only seen It's a Wonderful Life once, and I was like, so at this point in the original film, and he's about to like go back to his life. Does the angel say to him like, "Oh yeah, I was going to kill myself as well"? I was like, "What does the angel just like? Yeah, when I go back up, I was going to kill myself, but you made it worth living."
No, but I think it does that he almost saves the angel, where the angel kind of makes it look as if he's like to save him, kind of thing. And
he's
like, a little play on that.
Become a devil.
But that's why she says like you'd have to know the film in order to know like when she turns around and says, "You're my Clarence. You were the Clarence, not me. You the one that saved me." Like that's Clarence the character. So if you have not seen the film, you'd have no idea why she's suddenly calling her Clarence.
That went over my head.
Yeah, that was a reference to the original film, like you're the Clarence, not not me saving me.
Because again,
that adds a nice little like weight to it. I don't think they kiss at this point. They don't kiss until they go to the end.
I'm sure they kiss here as well.
Do they?
Yeah, because I was like, okay, like fair beans. I was like.
I thought this was more because they turn and go, it looks angry.
They kiss right. Yeah, they kiss after
Justin Long. Yeah,
they have like
in the cinema they had like a hold hands,
a charged moment.
So we're getting a little bit of like charged moments here that the dude she was cheating on, who's now dead, had nothing to be like necessarily.
Well, she can enjoy both.
She can enjoy whatever she wants. That's her choice.
Yeah,
standing up for this character.
Yeah, she's allowed to.
She's allowed to, but
then they're like, shit, it ain't working.
It's not worked, and
we need to go to Henry Waters' naughty or nice thing, and this is where I think people will either really like get into this film or just think like the wheels are falling off, because they go there and Henry Waters is kind of at the front of the stage and he's saying, you've been naughty or nice, and there's like a crowd of people.
It's like a weird ritual ceremony almost.
Weird.
Like this is how he goes through his naughty or nice. Like people either get punished or people get rewarded.
But they're all watching him with like these shining blue eyes.
Yeah.
And then at one point,
I felt like I'd missed something at this point. I was like, when was this established that we've got some weird supernatural? Because this wasn't.
This wasn't in it. I know he has those striking blue eyes, but it's fucking weird. And I was like, what the fuck is this? What's going on? And then he's like, I want to, Buck Rogers. No, not Buck. Not Buck Rogers. Buck Walters. Buck Waters is on the
His
list.
brother, the now
He's
sheriff.
naughty. He wants to transfer, and then he stabs his brother through the mouth, which is cool.
Yeah, you see the blade go through his mouth, which is quite awesome.
And then they dress him up as the angel and kind of put him on top of the tree. And I was like, that's a beautiful shot. That looks really cool.
Yeah.
But then I was thinking, you're right. Like, everybody in town is like, who's the angel? Like, he's killing people. We're living in fear. We live in this fucking shithole. And then are they hypnotized? Like,
well, that's what. Like, yes, they are hypnotized. They are completely drawn in because they don't get released until he's dead. So but that's where you're like, when was this established that this was part of anything? Like how they did this. That all I can link back to, as we were talking before, is the whole what they mentioned about the whole as if his spirit has somehow gained additional like power in this version. That like literally like he was dead and he wanted her to do this to bring himself back, and now he's like somehow gained, because there's none of that mentioned. There's none of this. And this is why we thought that we were saying that Dad may have been the killer in the original one as well. Like, there was two killers. We were thinking that would make sense because Dad seems to have had a bit of an odd turn in, after they skipped a year forward in the original timeline. Dad seemed to have, she was being overly sensitive to a lot of things, but Dad still seemed to be a little bit too easily drawn into the money now and stuff like that.
Well, it seemed like Dad's life had benefited. So I was like, he's fucking... he screwed Henry Waters over, he very much duped him into doing it, or they agreed to do it together, and then when Henry Waters got killed, Daddy
I weirdly kind of wanted her to return to her own timeline and kill Daddy.
I wanted
I feel like that was the slightly more satisfying version of this, where actually she realises the twist within the twist is actually that shit, that's Dad, and actually this was both of them in both timelines, and they were actually working together, because they kept saying how nice Dad was at the start of the film and stuff like that anyway, so it already seemed like they were layering it on fake, so when instead we get this odd, and by the way, Justin Long is great in this scene, is this weirdly like ritual kind of cultish kind of dude, with his veneers and like shirt off, and being like the dude that's like, no, I can do this. So he has these two thugs in white to like fight his battles for him, which seems like the kind of dude that would let that happen. But he's like, no, I can take these two girls. I can take these two. So he just lets them beat the shit out of him until he gets taken by a crowd. At no point does he go, oh, maybe you guys should help me now.
Maybe you should help.
Maybe no, because those guys haven't got glowing blue eyes, so they're just doing it.
Yeah,
I was looking at their eyes. Are they drawn in as well? No, they're just being paid. So,
and it's weird.
He gets his veneers knocked out as well. I noticed.
But he gets like beaten down to the floor, and then the crowd like snap out of this daze. They start to swarm him. He climbs up on the stage, and then I think maybe he draws the knife, and he's like, "I'm going to kill you." And then it just gets really bad.
It's his partner that's "I'm going to kill you." That's like she comes after, and then she they block her and stuff like that in order to off him. But it's not until he's dead that the whole hypnotized fully it's wavering.
It's just
they're
weird.
Losing belief in him, kind of thing. But all of this kind of just comes out of like, where was this set up for any of this? Like, was there more to this film when you've cut it? Like, was there an explanation here that we've just somehow missed? But it just didn't seem like this was set up for this twist at all. It seemed like it would work really well if this other timeline helped her not only realize, the things that she should be, liking, the people she should be looking out for, just like It's a Wonderful Life, but also who she should have looked at in the first place. To realise that actually there's a twist in it, Daddy. Because that would have worked so much better to go back and be like, first things first, got to kill him off. Now we're all happy now we can enjoy Christmas.
Because
I'm not saying that totally works,
No.
but there's something in there.
Because this just, I don't know, it kind of gave me the impression of like, I remember when we were doing our Halloween retrospective, this is just two things that have popped into my head, and it was very much like there were two moments in the Halloween franchise, amongst many missteps when it comes to the writing. But the first one is when John Carpenter said he didn't want to write Halloween 2, but he had to. So he brought a 6-pack of beer and he just wrote it in like a night. And then the other is, I think it's Dwight Howard maybe, who wrote Halloween 4. And it was like a week or 10 days or like 4 days before the writer's strike. And they wouldn't let him write during then, obviously. So he had to write the whole script and as many drafts as it took before then. And that's the thing we ended up with. And it struck me as if like they came up with the ending of, maybe Daddy is the other killer. And we're going to have to go back into the timeline, the original timeline, and we're going to have to confront him. And we're going to have this whole other kind of act or something. And then somebody just went, no, you've got 8 minutes left, and you have one scene left.
This is going to go on for too long.
Because it just feels like it came out of nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, it did. I mean, I was kind of in two minds because they try so limitly to even explain this or kind of thing. It still oddly was like, I was still kind of fine purely because I was like, well, at least I'm not getting some major exposition dump of how the hell this makes sense of thing. I'd almost rather have no clue instead of them tack on 5-10 minutes to explain how the fuck all of this is going on. Because I don't care enough about this twist to be told why everything works. Yeah. So I was in one way, I was like, I can kind of settle with this because I've enjoyed, for the most part, I've kind of enjoyed the ride of most of this film. Like it's been like a fun little ride with it, and not to kind of to gloss over the, that she goes back into the normal world, and her and Bernie before she goes back kiss, and
they kiss,
and everything's very oddly gone from like one day when everything was terrible to extremely, as you would expect with this kind of Christmassy twist ending, extremely kind of everything's perfect, everything's fine, I can forgive you. Oh, actually, you bought me a camera, not just... You still bought my brother a fucking car.
You bought him a fucking car.
Fine, it's fine. I don't care about any of that. That's all in the past now, because you're all alive again.
Railed.
Yeah, and Mum's not getting railed in the middle of the kitchen anymore.
And you're not a killer. And
because we couldn't afford to film in a different scene, because you remember all of these basically have the same sets for pretty much both of them. So they were limited in that sense because they do not shoot in like more than one scene. So they're like, we basically got to shoot one scene with you happy, then the next scene you're getting railed. And that's how we're doing this. That's the nicest. But that's fine because that's exactly what you're expecting for the ending, for it to be that kind of thing. So it works fine. We also get the little twist that Bernie is actually she remembers everything. She remembers everything, which I kind of was expecting to happen, even though it doesn't quite make sense. But you've got all of that kind of wrap up in there, and I guess that's where, like, yes, I definitely would have preferred the other way. I think to have a little bit more to the the dad and actually say that actually there's more to it than this. I think that would have made this play out slightly more interestingly at the end. To have like, Henry Waters is dead, but that's because it wasn't just Henry Waters.
It wasn't just him.
He wasn't doing all this himself, which would make a lot more sense generally. Anyway, it always makes more sense when it's more than one killer anyway, to be honest. But I think that would have made it slightly more enjoyable, and I think for me personally, just there's just a little bit when I know there's a lot of concept to get into this film, but some of the parts just didn't fully feel like I don't know whether they didn't have the budget or they just didn't think out certain parts. Some of it didn't feel like different enough, or they hadn't made everyone different enough in the second timeline to the first timeline, that it didn't fully feel like this was a completely like majorly like different overhaul of everyone. Like it's just a couple of crackheads. That's apart from that, it was crackheads and Mum's getting railed and everyone's a little bit sadder, but apart from that, apart from her ex-boyfriend, he seemed way happier.
Her ex-boyfriend was loving it. I mean it was okay. I think we mentioned it earlier, and it's the thing of, or the concept of, you have to really buy into it to enjoy it. And I wouldn't say that I found my attention span waning, but it definitely showed that it was kind of like a bit more of a lower budget. It did rely heavily on the concept, and it was a bit like wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You get what we're doing at times.
Yeah.
So I feel like I don't know if it's a film that I will watch again, to be completely honest. With this season, if you'd call it that, we've covered Black Christmas, which I will probably watch, around Christmas time, because it was creepy and it was great. And I feel like it might be one of those films that, like, the more I watch, the more I might pick up on weird little things out of shot, or the whole kind of creepiness of it.
Definitely has more of a long-lasting.
Yeah. We spoke about Gremlins. I know you'll watch it again. I think I've just watched it a bit too much. I might watch Gremlins too and just see.
But it's still, again, it's enough that you've seen it a lot of times. It's that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's more watching it so much that I kind of don't really want to have the taste of it.
Whereas this one,
a bit more
throwaway.
Yeah, a bit more throwaway. I mean, I recommend people watching it because I don't think it's a bad film. I don't think it's without merit. No. I just think it's one of the things that you might have to go into knowing that it is like the concept does a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of the horror and in terms of the slasher moments. They are I wouldn't say they're few and far between, but they're a bit more scaled back, and they are a bit more like lower budget than if you watched Freaky, if you watched Happy Death Day, or even if you watched maybe something like Totally Killer, which I do remember having a bit more of that Amazon Prime dick swinging money, where I remember it being a bit more brutal at times. You got to, I think, kind of adjust your expectations, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. I agree. I think it's fun and it's worth a watch for most people. Just as like a seasonal kind of, if you want a holiday kind of slasher, there's not tons of them. So, and there's also not tons of great ones, to be honest, either. So, and this one falls somewhere in the middle of being like it's okay. Like it's good enough that I think you'd have a bit of fun at Christmas, maybe watching it. But just don't weigh your expectations too highly onto it. But especially if you're going for Justin Long, there's enough of him to enjoy, a bit of that fun. He seems to be having fun with it. Is also what slightly raises it whenever he's on the scene, is that he seems to be enjoying the character that he's playing. So it adds a little touch to it. But yeah, so that's about it for It's a Wonderful Knife.
And, it's Christmas week, so we hope that you have a fabulous Christmas. There are many presents under your Christmas tree, not coal, dog shit, or whatever it is if you've been naughty in your culture. We have listeners all over the world, so it could be that you may have asked for coal and dog shit. In which case, we hope that you get that. I don't know. Some people maybe just still fuel their house on coal,
or maybe you'll get Justin Long under your tree. Yeah, that's what you wanted Justin this Long, Christmas.
Naked, ready, spread eagle to go. Just remember to hit that subscribe button and leave us a lovely review. And we will see you next week for a little 2024 roundup. Take care. Goodbye.